guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to part 2 of my giving my subscribers big sister advice series. I asked at the end of the last one if you guys wanted to see a second part to this, and so many of you said yes, so I'm back at it today. You guys sent in a lot of submissions. I'm just using the same ones from last time across YouTube and Instagram, and I'm going to be giving you my best advice. Disclaimer, I'm not a counselor or a life coach or a nutritionist, and I'm not a professional of any kind except for YouTuber, I guess. So take my advice with a grain of salt. You know what's best for your situation, but I know it's also helpful to talk it out, so that's what we're going to do today. Okay, first question. How do you find balance in motherhood, especially as a content creator? It would be so helpful to get a look into your schedule or any tips that you have too. Hope you're feeling well. Thank you. I hope you're feeling well too. So this has changed a lot over the recent months because my in-laws have been able to help us out a lot. My father-in-law is retired and my mother-in-law is about to retire. So this is like subject to change, but I'll give you kind of like a rundown of how my work week typically works. So on Mondays, Matt is in the office, so it's just Rowan and I, and we spend the morning up until nap time, which is usually about 1, just hanging out together. We go to the store, get any groceries we need, we clean the house, mostly we just play. And then when he goes down for a nap, that is my work time. So typically I'll edit my more sit down video, so like this video, on Monday because I know I have a little bit of a shorter window to do it during his nap, and that's when I do that. I also try to get any emails, contracts, etc. done. And then when he wakes up from his nap, I get him a snack, play with him more. And then my mother-in-law comes over on Monday nights from about 4:30 to 7:30. And I sometimes am able to get some more work done during this time. I usually work at least until Matt comes home at 6, and then we make dinner together. And then I try really hard to keep my weekends and nights pretty sacred for family time. These days that isn't always happening because, like I've mentioned before, I'm doing a little bit of extra work right now to try to save up some money so that I can take more of a maternity leave. But in an ideal world, I hang out with Matt in the evenings. And Tuesday, which is today, is when my father-in-law comes and picks Rowan up for the whole day. So he'll come between 9 and 10 and he takes Rowan to his house. So I get up with Rowan, give him breakfast, all that stuff. And then after he goes to his Nana and Pop's house, that's when I get a ton of work done. So I do all my emails and my contracts and my invoicing that I have outstanding. I usually do an Amazon Live on Tuesdays. I try to film a sit-down video, and I also shoot any content that I need to get done for Instagram. So Tuesdays are really like my big work days, and Matt's in the office those days as well. Then Wednesdays and Thursdays, Matt works from home, so both of those days we kind of like trade off playing with Rowan versus working, so I'm able to get a little bit more work done on those days than I do on like a Monday. And then Friday, it's just me and Rowan again, so we kind of do the Monday schedule where I just work during his nap. I also vlog on either a Monday or a Friday, vlog my day with Rowan. I am doing a lot of work nights and weekends right now just because of the reality of my situation, and this is a full-time job, and then I'm trying to do extra on top of that to save up for maternity leave. But come July, I am hiring an editor, so my 2 like editing days will free up a lot of time in my schedule, and I'm hoping to just get to spend more of that time with Rowan. I'm really thankful that we're gonna be, hopefully, if all goes according to plan, in a financial place to do that, because I feel like right now my work-life balance is definitely skewed more towards work, and I don't love that for like just motherhood, but I'm doing it now so that when Juniper comes, I can focus more of my energy on motherhood. And it's all about seasons. Some seasons work takes priority. Some seasons I'm much more motherhood focused way more of the time. Obviously the kids get the most of my energy and the best of me at any time really, but sometimes I do have to multitask a little bit more. So that's a little look into that. I hope that was helpful. How did you cope so well with labor pain? Okay, so here's my secret. I'm an extremely competitive person, and I just challenged myself over and over again, like, bet you can get through one more contraction. I bet you can get through one more contraction. And also counting. So I would count all the way up to 16, like slowly. That's about as long as my contractions ever got in like the worst part of labor. And it was like oftentimes like 1, 2, or whatever. Also keep your body loose, especially your neck and your hands. You have the tendency to like, when you're in pain, but just trying to make sure I was keeping my neck moving and keeping my hands moving. And it was straight up like a competition to me. I wanted to see how far I could go. Not gonna lie, it was very painful, but it was also doable. So, will you consider using the Montessori approach for sleeping with this baby or for Rowan? I guess this is more of a me question than an advice question, but we're not doing the Montessori method. I think it's really cool if you have the capacity to like really supervise, but I personally feel safest with Rowan in a crib, and I would rather put more of my energy into other parts of motherhood, like activities and stuff for him, than worrying about like if he's bouncing around his room at bedtime. How do I get me time as a mom with a husband who works out of the home every day? Time management tips and tricks for getting it all done. So I have a whole video on this. I will link it for you right up here so you can see my like getting it all done routine. But some of my biggest tips are A, don't do anything while the baby is sleeping that you could do while they're awake. So if you can multitask and do like especially house stuff like loading the dishwasher or whatever while they're awake, that gives you more time while they're sleeping to do things that you can't do when you're with them, like napping or taking a minute to like read a book and like fully have all of your attention in it. Another thing that I would say is prioritize you and your well-being and your me time over housework. The dishes will get done eventually. You will get to it. They're not going anywhere. But sometimes taking the mental health break during the nap is what you need to do to get through the day. And I think that that's ultimately more important. Also, leverage their meal times, because if you can be in the same room as your kiddo, they're in a high chair, but they're contained and you're still like there to watch them. This is when I get like my workouts done in the afternoon, or I answer emails because he is the most occupied with his food. So leverage that as best as you can. Try to get as much stuff done as you can while they're eating. That way, when you're eating, like say you're doing lunch during their nap time or whatever, like you can watch a YouTube video or like multitask and paint your nails or whatever if you're having a smoothie. But yeah, definitely check out that whole video that I did. For marriage, how did you know you were really ready to settle down? What gave you the confidence that you were ready to become a wife and future mommy? So I know this is like not the most helpful advice, but it really is true. It's kind of a when you know situation. I think when you are ready and when you found the person you're supposed to be with, like it will be a gut feeling, and that's how it was for me. There was never a second where I questioned whether or not I wanted to be married to Matt. I got married really young. I got married at 21, and that wasn't like for religious reasons or anything like that. He's older than me and I wanted to get married, so we got married. But I just knew, I just felt it. I felt like I was ready. I was so excited about it. There was nothing that I was like nervous about. Now with kids, this is a little bit of a different story because Rowan was a wonderful but very unexpected surprise. And so I didn't know that I was like ready to have kids. I just had to be ready. So for him, I got ready when I got the second line on the test, like I figured it out. But for Juniper, I've talked about this a little bit before, but I knew I was ready to have a second baby when it became less scary to me. And it was more about paying attention to when I was definitely not ready and when that kind of like eased up. So I'm the first time mom of an almost 18-month-old baby girl. She's so attached to me all the time, thinking about getting pregnant for number 2, but this daughter of mine is making me think if I really want another one anytime soon, so much in a dilemma. I get that. Rowan went through a phase where he was super needy, and this was around like 13, 14 months. And that was when I was like, I don't think I'm going to have a second kid. I don't think I can do this again. But remember that your kid is likely in a phase and there will be times in their life where they don't need you as much. So this will pass. And pregnancy is 9 months. So it's a long time. If you're not ready, don't force yourself. I know there's a lot of pressure to have like 2 under 2 or whatever and like get it all out of the way. And I definitely felt that pressure, but ultimately whatever timeline is best for you and your family is what's best for you and your family. So hope that's helpful. Okay, so those were the YouTube questions that I wanted to answer. Now I'm going to go over to my Instagram archive. By the way, if you guys are not following me on Instagram, I would love it if you would follow me over there. I tend to update more of my like day-to-day stuff on my stories. So if you want to keep up in real time instead of waiting for the vlog, which is typically like a week delayed, my handle is Megan E. Acuna, so you can find me over there. I'm nervous I'll be really disappointed if future baby number 2 is another boy because I've always dreamed of having one of each. I know you didn't experience this, but any advice? So if you remember when I was pregnant with Rowan and found out he was a boy, I experienced some gender disappointment. I know that can be kind of a controversial subject, but ultimately you can't really help the way that you initially feel about something. You can only help how you react and respond and grow through it. So I think it's something that's really important to talk about because I really had to work through that. I have a whole video on how to overcome gender disappointment, so I'm gonna put that up here because it is honestly one of my favorite videos I've ever done, because I think it's been one of the most like genuinely helpful to other women videos that I've ever made. So I have more in-depth tips in there, but a couple quick like flybys are, number one, remember that the idea that you have in your head of what a girl is and what a boy is and what they're gonna like are not specific to the child that you're actually having. So if you're having a boy and you always hope to have a little girl who would be into ballet, like maybe your little boy will be into ballet. You never know. The second thing I would say is focus on the positives of if you have two boys pretty close together, like they're gonna be the best of friends. Not saying that like a girl and a boy can't also be really close, but I think the brother bond is something really unique and special, as is the sister bond. And I think you can kind of lean into the fun of like being a boy mom. That's what I did with Rowan. I was like, I'm a boy mama, like queen of the castle, and it's silly, but it really does help and like make it a little bit more fun. Some other things that I go over more in depth in the video are choose a name, start thinking of your baby as a person instead of just like a thing that you can't really connect to. Start shopping for clothes and designing your nursery, like anything you can do to get yourself really excited. And if you're really struggling and having a hard time, I think something that I did that was really helpful was to video secretly, because I wasn't supposed to, a little bit of one of our ultrasounds. And when I was feeling kind of disconnected or disappointed, I would pull it up and I would watch Rowan move. And like even on the blurry ultrasound screen, it really helped switch my perception from like this strange boy that I have in my belly to like, oh my gosh, this is my son. And he's like moving and he's a person, and like that helped me feel way more connected to him. So, but really the video that I made is going to be more helpful than like my short little Q&A, so I would really recommend going to watch that. I'm turning 22 this year and I wanted to know if you have any advice for the 20s or at least early 20s. Currently in my second year at university, and wanted to know if you had advice for managing stress and social life out of school. This is something that I did not do very well when I was in college, and so I do have some advice, which is to not do what I did. There is so much pressure in college, especially if you're like supporting yourself. Like I was working multiple jobs to pay rent and stuff like that, and I was on a full ride scholarship, so I like really had to keep my grades up, and I think I kind of drowned in the stress of that, and so I cut out a lot of social activity because I felt like there just wasn't time. And I really regret that part of my life, that I didn't get as much out of it as I could have in terms of like the lifelong friendships and like the college shenanigans. Like I kind of was either in class or working or like off campus at my apartment. And I wish that I had invested more of my time into my social life, because that is valuable. And even for your career, that's valuable because you're networking. Like you never know where those people are going to go. I think keeping it in perspective of like, will this matter in 5 years? Like, will it matter in 5 years if you fail your final? Maybe. That's probably an important thing to focus on. Will it matter in 5 years if you maybe didn't study as well as you should have for one little quiz and you get a B instead of an A? Probably not. And that's coming from a recovered academic perfectionist. Like I mentioned, I did my international baccalaureate in high school. I had like a 4.5 GPA, full scholarship to college. I was very like grades, 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 grades. And now I regret that. So that's my 2 cents. Obviously don't, fail your classes, but the best way to blow off stress is to be in connection with other people. And I think that that's just as important during that period of your life. Also, as you're exploring your independence, like you want to have your tribe and your support system. And that's ultimately going to positively affect other areas of your life, including your school life. Do you have any tips for confidence, especially postpartum? Yeah, it took me way too long to realize this, but I think that your confidence needs to be completely separate from how you look. And I know that's so much harder said than done, but I personally find that I'm most confident when I focus on the traits about myself that align with my values. So for example, I would way rather be the kindest person in the room than the prettiest person in the room. And I think with our media culture and constantly being bombarded by images of beautiful women, we tend to subconsciously kind of put that higher on our priorities list than it actually is on our values list. So I would recommend taking 5 minutes to sit down and journal, like, what are my values? What is actually important to me to do and be? And I bet that being pretty is probably probably not on that list. And that also goes for like body image and stuff like that. Like I would rather be intelligent than thin. I know it takes a long time to really shift your mindset to that and to take your confidence from your personality traits rather than your looks, but I think it's a really important shift to make. And as a result, it's kind of like a cyclical thing. Confidence is attractive. So if you're feeling more confident about yourself, it changes the way you walk out into the world, and you will automatically be prettier and more attractive when you're feeling confident. Does that make sense? Like, not that that should be the only reason you're trying to up your confidence, but I think that it's a nice byproduct. I obviously still struggle with this. This is something I've especially been struggling with recently because I have gained more weight in this pregnancy than I did with Rowan, like by a lot. And so I've been kind of struggling through the emotions of that. But at the end of the day, I try to remind myself like who I am is way more important than what I look like. I draw my confidence from things like being a good listener and being a fun mom. And I try not to let how I look dictate whether or not I'm having a good time, because I used to do that. I used to be at a party or whatever, and instead of having fun, like swimming in the pool or whatever, I'd be like trying to cover my stomach with my arms. And that's just not a fun way to live. I would way rather have more fun experiences than spend the whole time trying to make other people think that I'm attractive, you know? I hope that was helpful. I know that's like really difficult advice to follow, but it's something that I'm currently working through, so I thought I would just share my thought process. Tips on how to rekindle intimacy after baby. I think start slow, start with what you're comfortable with. Your body's been through a lot, and hopefully your partner understands that. But I think one of the most important parts of being able to be intimate again after a baby is making sure that you're like animal brain feels safe. And a big part of that is building up intimacy throughout the day that has nothing to do with trying to think of a PG way to say bedroom stuff. So that's like talking, connecting about your day. Physical touch like hand holding or hugs, making sure that your body feels very, very safe and connected to your partner is really important. I would also recommend talking to your partner ahead of time or, during, if it's different than you thought it would be, about expectations and letting them know that you're gonna need time and space. And if they're a good partner, they will understand that and know that it's temporary. You will get back in your groove. It's not gonna last forever. Just like everything, it's a season where you're recovering from a fairly traumatic event that happened to your body, whether you gave birth via C-section or you did it. I hate that I can't use the correct words for my anatomy or I'll get demonetized. The other way, I'll say that you can give birth out of your body. But yeah, just as a function of time, you will get more comfortable. I love my baby so much, but I'm not sure that I like being a mom. Help. I feel this. I understand where you're coming from. First of all, that does not make you a bad mom. Loving your child and loving motherhood are two completely different things. My friend Ashley has a really great video on this, so if you want to check it out, I would highly recommend hers. But for me, there have been times in my motherhood journey where I have loved being a mom and parts where I have absolutely dreaded getting up in the next morning and not getting to belong to myself at all throughout the day. And that doesn't mean I didn't love Rowan. Like, I've always loved Rowan. He's one of my favorite people and I love hanging out with him. But it's very demanding and it often requires you to neglect your own needs, and that's hard for anybody. That's a very normal response, and I think that our culture shames women who say, hey, I don't love motherhood. But the truth is, a lot of people don't love motherhood, but they love their kids. The two crucial things for me in kind of overcoming this were A, starting to romanticize my life and romanticize motherhood. Again, I have a whole video on this. It's one of my favorite ones I've ever done. Romanticizing your life is such a huge game changer, and I have a whole section in that video about like doing that as it pertains to motherhood. And that helped me to start thinking about motherhood as like this magical, like playing house kind of experience again. And the other thing is to realize that maybe you don't hate motherhood, you hate this specific stage of like development. Like, I loved being a newborn mom, didn't really love motherhood from like 12 to 14 months when Rowan was like freshly mobile and needed a lot of attention and a lot of supervision and couldn't communicate with me. Like, that was not my favorite season. And so like maybe I kind of hated being a early toddler mom, But now, like, we're 21 months and I love being a toddler mom. Motherhood changes so much month to month that whatever, I keep saying season, but it's true. Whatever season you're in right now is not how it will be forever. So if you don't like it, you kind of just have to wait it out. Try to make the best of it in the meantime, romanticize your life, know that you're not alone and that you're not a bad mom if you don't love motherhood all the time, but also know that it will pass. And your kid's gonna learn new skills and there's gonna be new things that surprise and delight you about them and their development, especially as they start being able to talk to you more. They get more and more fun, and also I think a little bit easier to deal with because they can tell you what their needs are. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. All right, I have been blabbering on for far too long, but thank you guys so much for sending in your advice questions. I really hope that this was helpful for you. Also, just shoot me a DM on Instagram if you ever want to talk or vent. I try to get as many of my Instagram messages answered as I can. I love talking to you guys, so that's a great place to connect with me. But I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to hang out with you again super soon. Bye. Mwah.